Hello snowboarders of the internet. I'm your host Averin Lefebvre, and in this video we're going to be reviewing the Nidecker Cowan X or Cowan X or Cowan. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it has an X in it. So let's dive right into this. I rode this binding at Arapahoe Basin on a 6-inch pow day with overcast gray skies, low to moderate winds, fresh pow on top of older, crustier pow. There was chopped chunder, a little bit of ice, firm, fast groomers, and I rode it on my Telos Mike Rankwit snowboard with my K2 Thraxis boots. The binding adjustments on this are pretty straightforward. You have flip cams on the toe and the heel to lengthen or shorten the straps. The toe strap is on a push pin system. It gives you 2 points of placement, so push it down, pull it back up, lock it in. The high back has 4 points of rotation, if that's your thing, and then you have the forward lean adjustment. Basically, meat and potatoes when it comes to adjustability. The heel strap utilizes Nidecker's Oxtec, which is a technology that as you crank it, it strengthens. The material is a little more rigid, but I never noticed it digging into my boot or just feeling like I couldn't push into it. Did feel super secure. The toe strap is the same with a huge outer cutout for the chassis of it, so just around the perimeter of it. This grips really well on just about any variety of boot shapes. Overall, these straps work exceptionally well. When it comes to the ratchets, I need to mention that these were fresh out of the box, so they didn't really feed in perfectly right away. They had to break in a little bit, but as the day progressed, that seemed to become less and less of a problem. One thing I did notice was the mouth of the ratchet is a little narrower, so feeding the ladder in takes a little more effort, but overall, the one finger quick release does its job. They climb well. You don't have to worry about it. They feel snug and secure. They feel sturdy. I never had them prematurely release on me. I just had problems with them being a little sticky when I was feeding the ladder in. When it comes to the high back, it has a varied flex to it. Obviously, where the cutout is, you're going to get more give, but at the base of it, right up over the forward lean adjustment, it's more rigid. So when you drive into it, you actually feel it cupping at the back of your spine on your boot. There's just a little bit more power and oomph in there when you push into it. The forward lean adjustment does its job. Overall, high back, while a little loose where that cutout is, it's actually a little more rigid on that outside, so when you're pushing out like for a carve or a press, you feel it in there, and like I said, at the base of it, it tends to be even more rigid. Overall, the flex of this binding is a little bit on the stiffer side. It does have more material on that chassis, so it just creates a bigger dead spot, a little bit more rigid flex right underfoot. You do get some lateral play in the binding and the high back. You notice that right away. It's a stiffer all-mountain freestyle binding. Not super stiff that it's bordering on freeride, but it's past middle of the road. You notice it in there. Overall, it's a predictable flex, which is nice. Like, you get on it and you're like, oh, okay. Nothing weird's gonna happen, but you also know that you'll be able to drive with it and play around when you want to. The overall ride of this binding is very reminiscent of a binding from 10 years ago. It's just got more material underfoot. It's got a bigger dead spot. You notice that right on the outside and inside of the binding, as well as directly under your toe and heel. Not a bad thing if that's something that you're looking for, where everyone else is going with a mini disc and more board feel. This is actually causing less board feel. The footbed is super plush. It does a great job of absorbing chatter. This is a binding that's very damp, but still retains some liveliness on the top end of it through the straps. Who's this binding for? The all-mountain freestyle rider that likes to charge. So there's some interesting things, maybe bordering on weird, with this binding. First off, you have an offset disc, which really makes centering that binding on your board weird because you're like moving it around. Not a lot of companies are doing that anymore. Not a bad thing, just be aware of that. Then you got to kind of talk about the chassis of this. So it's actually a 2-piece construction, but you can't adjust the heel cup at all. So it's riveted on, but it's 2-piece. That kind of changes the flex dynamic right at the heel cup a little bit. It's not much. Most people will probably never actually notice it. And then you got the foot pad. This is one of the most plush, thick foot pads I've ever ridden. It just absorbs everything. Then when you look at the heel straps, it's definitely borrowing some technology from Rome, which Nidecker owns. So with that Oxtec in there, the ratchets look like a Rome ratchet. They do their job. I mean, it's a good binding, don't get me wrong. It does what you need it to do. I've ridden better. I've ridden a lot worse. So this is actually like a really promising thing to see where Nidecker's going with this. But is it like a mind-blowing binding? Nah, not necessarily. But is it good? Yeah, it's something that like I wouldn't hesitate to buy. Comparable bindings. The Burton Cartel. The Now Select Pro. the K2 formula. This has been my review of the Nidecker Kone X. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you own a pair? Are you going to buy a pair? Leave me a comment down below. Let's have a conversation about this binding. If you're new here, remember to subscribe. Click the bell, get those notifications, that way you're not missing any of the videos we got coming out for all you snowboarders of the internet. And if you really like what we're doing over here and you want to support us further, swing on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP and become a member. Sure, I could tell you more here, but I got a video over there that explains it so much better. As always, I've been your host, Avery Lefebvre, and I'll see you in another video.